You're listening to the Raw Honeys podcast, the place to be real, be love, and befriend. Join Chelsea Fine, Heather Hildenbrand, and me, Amanda Axel. We're real friends who aren't afraid to talk about the raw truth of real life. If you're looking for a group of girlfriends who will support and encourage you when the going gets tough, this is the place to be. Pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and enjoy the show.
Hello, honeys, and thank you for tuning in to today's show. This is Heather Hildenbrand, and I'm here with Chelsea Fine and Amanda Axel to talk about bringing sexy back. On this episode, we're chatting about our own views on what it means to be sexy, whether we consider it a strength or a weakness, how society views sexiness, and ultimately, how to reclaim and redefine what sexy means for today's woman. We're also going to share our thoughts on what you can do to feel sexier and why we think that is so important for all of us to really prioritize. So let's get into it. So earlier today, I was talking to a friend of mine about how I was going to pick up my husband from the airport right after we are done recording this. And I was telling her, I needed to get off of the phone early so I could do my hair and my makeup and put on a nice outfit. And her response was that she wouldn't bother if it were her and her husband, because she knows her husband doesn't really care whether she does those things for him or not. And it made me really think, because really my husband doesn't care either. I already know that. I actually know that he loves when I leave my hair curly and wild, and he has never once pointed out how I look nicer with makeup versus without. And I know for a fact his favorite look on me is wild hair, don't care, because he tells me that every time I wear it like that. He actually likes it best when I wear my glasses, which isn't going to happen in public. But I do know he just doesn't care. So it made me wonder, it made me think, why am I bothering to do this? And I realized I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for me, because I like how I look, and therefore how I feel when I'm wearing makeup and real pants. And I really like looking pretty and feeling sexy because of it. And I also know that feeling can't really come from putting on eyeshadow or lipstick or anything. I do know it's a feeling or something about me that I carry inside myself, but I do know it comes out more when I make the effort. And I just like how that feels. So I'm really excited to talk about this with you today. And I'm really excited to talk about how it impacts, how our society impacts or judges that sense of wanting to look or feel sexy. And it's actually something that I've noticed over and over again in our culture, is that women are viewed as sexy or. So sexy or motherly, sexy or studious, sexy or professional, and that it's really hard to be seen as sexy and. And then the flip side is that when we're viewed as sexy, all of a sudden we're not smart or thoughtful or worthy of contributing in any other way than our sex appeal. So I really want to dig in and talk about this with you guys today and get your opinion on whether or not you feel like you hear those same messages from society or not. So Amanda, I'm going to pick on you first. And I'm just curious, because the word sexy is, to me, kind of like the word feminist or vegan. Some people are really into the idea or turned on by it, but some people are, depending on the context that they define it as, are just way turned off. So what do you think? Do you agree with me that society has painted these lines in the sand about feeling or being sexy?
Yeah, I definitely think, as sort of a blanket statement, yes. Sexy is sort of this, it's kind of this, I don't know, this sort of awkward or uncomfortable thing, with the masses, we like it, but we don't want to always be perceived as that, or maybe we do want to be perceived as that. But you know what? So first of all, I just want to back up for a second, because I think it's really cool what you were saying earlier about how your husband thinks your hair is sexy when it's wild and curly, which it is right now, and it looks gorgeous.
Thank
and
you.
He likes you in your glasses but you chose not to wear your glasses because you don't feel sexy in your glasses. So it's really cool that you have made these choices based on how you feel versus how your husband wants to perceive you, right?
Right.
Like even what he thinks is sexy. And we do that so much in society. We think being sexy a lot of times means that, you know, like with women, we wear like low cut shirts or a really tiny skirt or really tight jeans or whatever, or a lot of makeup, or, you know, fill in the blank. Or like with men, you know, it's like wearing like a sexy tank top. Sorry, I like that.
I could tell your whole voice changed. Wow.
Or, you know, like a 5 o'clock shadow, or, you know, whatever, you know, like, and, but it's really more about like what makes us feel sexy. It was funny too, because actually last night, I just arrived in Texas to see my family, and my mom has this new hairstyle, and I said, your hair looks really great. It's really sexy. And you should have seen her face. She was like, wait, what? No.
Oh.
Nobody calls me sexy.
Was she like, did she not want that compliment, or was she just shocked?
I think it made her uncomfortable because I think that probably she doesn't perceive herself as a sexy person. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what you're saying is like sexy or, but you know, she's my mom. She is sexy and motherly. You know what I mean? She is sexy and whatever, you know, fill in the blank. And I just found it so interesting how, you know, we sort of have a negative connotation of this word in sort of this harmless way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
Like how it just sort of unnerved her, how it unnerves certain people. Like being sexy is almost like not a negative thing, but like that's not me. I can't be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times we feel like, oh yeah, of course people want to be sexy. Who doesn't want to be sexy?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think there's probably a lot of underlying. I think a lot of people maybe carry a lot of baggage, like a subconscious baggage about that. Because if somebody asks, like your mom, I mean, I'm just picking on her just because of that reaction, but because I don't know her heart. But if that's her reaction, if you asked her, she'd probably say, yeah, I would love to be found sexy by people. But when faced with that compliment, that was her reaction. So there's a lot of like subconscious stuff about that. I think that our culture sends like subliminal messages about.
Well, I think a lot of that actually might even come down to, does the word sexy automatically cancel out any other adjectives that could positively, identify a woman? And I think that is maybe one of the big risks that we take as individuals when we make a decision to try to act sexy or try to embrace sexy, however that looks for us. Each on our own level. Like that's the risk we're sort of taking is, oh no, I might actually achieve this sexiness that I want to feel for whatever purpose. But then if someone identifies sexiness in me, does that mean that I'm no longer going to be thought of as smart or funny? Exactly the things that you were saying just a few minutes ago, Heather. You know, so I do think that there is definitely risk there. And I think that can fall into that subconscious category, along with the fact that, you know, Amanda, you are her daughter, and she is your female representative of females, and you know maybe that plays some tangledness into how we respond, you know, to the word sexy.
That is true. That's true because I don't know. Have I ever told my mom that she was sexy or she looks sexy? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I tell
but that's an excellent point. It's like, who is saying this?
Right?
Like, would she have the same reaction if, you know, I don't know, Troy Aikman was saying it to her? She used to love Troy Aikman, so I'm just using mine.
I was like, this example is specific. Okay. Nice.
She is gonna kill me when she hears this.
I know. I'm like, did we get your mom's permission before making her the celebrity on our show today? Because she's got the spotlight. Like, she does not even know right now.
She has no clue.
No clue.
Mom, if you're listening, you're very sexy. Okay, own it.
And Troy Aikman, if you're listening, Amanda's mom is really sexy.
And you should tell her that she's sexy.
Totally.
And let us know how she responds. Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Consider it a social experiment.
Exactly.
We need to know.
Oh,
It is
my
interesting.
God.
Okay,
though,
so that brings me to my next question then is, how does society's view of sexy impact how we see ourselves? Because it sounds like there's a little bit of that going into, like we were joking about it just now, but there would be a little bit of that going into that, because you're saying it depends on who is saying that to you. Mm-hmm. So does our culture's view of what sexy means impact how we see ourselves?
I would say absolutely. I mean, unless you have a really good self-discipline in how you see yourself, I think our culture, at least for me, it certainly impacts me. It certainly plays a part in defining or shaping what I personally consider sexy to an extent. And then also when and how and why I can feel, or sometimes do feel, sexy from external sources and stuff, which is interesting too, because there is a difference between feeling internally sexy yourself and feeling sexiness validation or something from external sources.
That's a thing.
Is that that's a phrase. So I definitely think that culture for sure gets in there and plays a part. I mean, we're inundated with everything, with advertisements and with notions, and even just down to really silliness, just branding on everything in the world nowadays. Sexiness is so powerful when it comes to marketing. That how do we avoid it? I don't think we really can. Average person speaking wise, but I don't know, Amanda. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, I'm just thinking about myself. I mean, to me, the word, when we think of sexy, we think of an object of desire, right? Can we kind of agree on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Or no? So, as human beings, we all want to be desired in many different ways. And some of that is a sexual desire. Not that sexy just means, the object of sexual desire can mean many other things. But I know, like, even for me, I look at myself compared to other people, or what I see on Pinterest, or what I see on the internet or in TV or whatever. And I start picking apart myself and saying, wow, if I had nicer cheekbones, I'd be prettier. So I'd be sexier. Or like, if I had like a fuller lip, I'd be sexier. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's what I mean about our society defining it for us, or trying to make us doubt, do we measure up to that definition?
Right. And a perfect example is, I'm a very fair-skinned person. I cannot tan to save my freaking life. I've already tried, so don't email me ideas because I've already done it. But in our current culture, tan is very sexy, super sexy. But 100 years ago, tan was not sexy. And in Asian society, tan is also not sexy. But I feel very unsexy in my pale skin because I'm an American.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say that to you, that in Asia, the pale skin is like, that's what's sexy. That's what is on all the marketing, on the billboards. Like when I used to fly to Guam all the time, and I would fly through Tokyo, in the airport, there's just billboards and posters everywhere of this skincare that its whole claim to fame was that it would give you more like a fair complexion, because that's what everybody there wants. So it is interesting that we get so caught up in what our society tells us is sexy and what we have to like strive for to be sexy, because it's the complete opposite somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, right. Which just makes it sort of confusing to be a human being in a way. Yeah. Because we have these varying global definitions of what sexiness is, but they bleed into each other and over and around one another. And so we, at least as women, as females, as Americans, we get all these, actually I'm going to call them mixed messages about what is desirable and what we should be pursuing or chasing after when it comes to beauty. And I think that it just creates so much chaos, in a sense, of like what's out there and what that means and what we should be, that we're all just kind of jumping into different costumes. It's sort of what it feels like to be. Like we're trying out different beauty lifestyles and looks to see which one makes us feel like we belong. And it's, for me, feels like a
Totally.
hamster wheel in a sense, because I haven't yet found where I belong, if I'm going to be honest with you guys, because I don't have that, I don't wake up every day right now in this season of my life feeling beautiful or gorgeous or sexy. Like, it's something I have to work on in this season of my life because of where I'm at, you know, psychologically, and emotionally, and spiritually, and stuff like that. And that's really, at least for my personal standards, like, that's what I want to feel like I understand the definition of sexy is when I'm waking up every morning and I feel it first thing. I feel it without having anything thrown at me or shown to me or any reminders of what culture I live in, what time I live in. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, talk about living your best life.
Real.
Waking up feeling sexy.
Yeah.
If you wake up feeling sexy, let us
I know, right? Like, that's
because we want to talk
it's
to
like
you.
El Dorado.
Right.
Like, I'm going to find gold, guys. I'll let you know how this works. You know what, though? No,
Yes.
I did actually wake up feeling that way for a short while after I did iboga, that plant medicine, that psychoactive plant medicine, because it does remove a lot of your fears. It removes a lot of your insecurities, or I'm not sure actually the science of what it does, but it was beautiful and it allowed me to feel very free and very genuine all the time. So I actually did experience that to a certain degree. And maybe that's my problem now, is I want to experience that all the time. I don't know.
Well, I will say, out of everything that you were saying, so this is what I was going to bring up next, so it's perfect. So out of everything that you said about you need to change in order to wake up feeling sexy, you said emotional, spiritual, psychological. You did not say physical. You did not say you need to change how you look physically in order to feel sexy. You already know the answer, because this is exactly where I wanted to go. Is that it's not about what you look like. It is about how you feel about what you look like, about what you think about what you look like. Because I've gone through seasons where I feel sexier than other times too, for sure. And I actually, I'm not going to lie, the first time it really left me, and I realized, and I was sitting there going, what is different between now and however many months ago that I can remember feeling like this, you know, because it happened slowly. And then one day you're like, where did that feeling go? I didn't even realize it was gone. Where did it go? And I'm sitting there going, well, what is different? And I'm looking in the mirror naked and I'm like, am I exercising now? Like, what is different? And I was asking my husband, like, do I look different to you physically? Like, naked? Do I look different than before? And no, I mean, I looked exactly the same, but it was almost like a Shallow Hal. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah. That was me and Brett's first date. That movie.
Oh my God, it's so cute. I love it.
Adorable. Okay, continue.
Okay, so in Shallow Hal, he just sees everyone differently. They look the same to everyone else. It's just through his eyes that they look more attractive and everything. And so, like, you know, through his eyes, she weighs 100 pounds soaking wet, and to society, maybe she weighs twice that. Like, it was huge differences that he got, like, bumped on the head, and, like, now everything looks different. And so, but it was kind of like that, because I literally thought I had gained weight. And I just, that must be what it was, right? That I was, like, feeling worse about myself. And I weighed myself. I asked my husband. I looked at old photos. I looked the same, guys. And I actually didn't even know that at first. I was, like, really trying to figure out what went wrong physically. But it wasn't the physical. It was just how I decided I felt about myself. And, like, the best way I can describe it to you is I had swagger.
That's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy though, but I love that you said you didn't even list physical, because it's true. And I was curious how aware you guys are of that, or if you agree that feeling sexy really is about, you know, comes from the inside, not how we look on the outside.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think being sexy is all about your confidence and how you feel about yourself. Because I had this thing come up one time. I was at an event and I was checking people in. You know, I was dressed very modestly, very modest makeup, like nothing special or anything, you know, by society's standards, right? And my friend later came up to me and she was like, Amanda, you look so sexy checking those people in. And I was like, seriously? You know, and but that's the thing, is it's nothing that like I wasn't trying to be sexy. I wasn't acting. I was literally just checking people off a list. I don't even know how you can be sexy doing it, but apparently I'm very sexy checking.
You did it.
That's
to
awesome.
her, you know what I mean? And that's because there's something inside of me that is like attractive to someone like her. You know what I mean? In the sense, like, there's something about me that she desires for herself, you know? And so absolutely it comes from the inside. I don't know what that thing is. And another person may completely disagree, and they probably do.
No, I actually can't, like, hold on. I want to think about what you just said for a second. I've never thought about it like that. I'm sitting here going,
uncover something?
Yeah, you said you had something that she desires for herself. And that is why she thought that. When I really have always thought about it like everyone, like it's everyone. If I'm sexy, like everyone will notice I have that something, that swagger or whatever going on. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's only the people who like notice what it is I have that they think they lack. And that's really what it is, you know, at the root of it. It's not as simple as what I was making it. I don't know, because something similar happened to me a few years ago. I was like walking to my mailbox to get my mail. And then this neighbor of mine, he was a little bit of an older gentleman, and he told me that, and in a non-come on kind of way, it's going to sound come on-ish when I repeat it, because I can't remember word for word. I can remember the essence I took away. And that is that he told me that I was just really sexy. I had a sexy walk. And I mean, I was in like probably pajamas and like my hair wasn't done and stuff. And he wasn't hitting on me, but he was just kind of trying to explain to me, like, do you even realize? And he even told me it's not about, because I'm like, I'm not dressed. He's like, it's not about what you're wearing. It's not about what you look like. It's the way you move. And I thought about that for a long time. And I take that to mean that sexiness really comes from a place of confidence. Yeah. That's what gives us that swagger, because if it's the way I'm walking, then it's a confidence that I didn't even know I was carrying that day. And I think about that for that girl that told you that you were really sexy, checking those people in. It's probably because of this confidence. But then the way you said it, I was like, okay, wait, is it confidence? Let me think about this. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what it is that everybody's after. And that's why they look at it as sexy.
I think definitely, for sure. Confidence is what everybody is after, right? To a certain extent. We're all,
right?
Yes. We all want
absolutely,
that.
yes.
And I would maybe even add on top of that I think freedom of any kind also kind of plays into that. I think maybe freedom and confidence might even go hand in hand a little bit, but you know, sometimes you'll come across somebody who is so free-spirited in the sense that they accept themselves, like free, like they look into your eyes and they're not afraid of anything. You know, I do think that people who carry that kind of freedom in their disposition, I tend to find them very magnetic, in the sense where it doesn't really matter what they look like. I am attracted to them, you know, and it doesn't, I don't know if freedom and confidence might be the same thing, but for some reason they feel slightly different to me. But yeah, definitely something from the inside though, either way, you know, because you can come across people who physically are gorgeous, like almost perfect, and not have anything resonate inside you, you know. It's certainly not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was just thinking, I have this friend, she's a very good friend of mine. She really struggles with her self-confidence, but for some reason, I think she is probably one of my sexiest friends, and I don't know what it is. I think she's just got this ball of sexiness like inside of her that she buries under all that other crap. And like, I can see it. You know, and I think other people can see it too, which is really weird because she doesn't carry herself that way. And she's not a very confident person, but she's freaking sexy. I don't know what it is.
So the moral there is that we don't always have to know or feel sexy to be sexy. Is that what we're saying?
That's true. It sounds like that's true. I agree with it.
Sexy is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yes. Okay, so then let me shift it a little bit and ask you guys something else about this. So what we're talking about here is, our personal view on being sexy and what like the essence of it is, because it's an inside feeling. But switching back to how our culture, our society defines it or treats it, because that's always going to be different than our feelings, right? It's all going to be surface and physical. So society, I feel like, has, instead of equating sexy with confidence, they have equated sexy with slutty, I feel like, a lot of times. And that's one of the reasons I see that women shy away from even wanting that label of sexy, because it's synonymous with slutty, which I, being the sexually free and open-minded person that I am, actually don't even think there's anything wrong with being quote unquote slutty necessarily by definition, but for the sake of argument, because society has decided slutty is bad, therefore sexy is bad. I mean, how do you guys see that? Do you feel like women are really affected? Chelsea, do you feel like that label is synonymous? Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. I would say that's so synonymous, and I would even say the label sexy is also synonymous with shame to a certain extent too. So right. I mean, it even goes deeper and murkier and darker than sluttiness, which is so sad. It's so sad because it restrains and restricts something that is meant to be naturally healthy, and positive. It's just so sad that we, as women, at least in this culture, are having a conversation right now about how those things tend to equate, in the minds of definition, sexiness and sluttiness, or sexiness and shamefulness. And then,
especially for women, because we're not talking about this for men.
No, we're not. And listen, bringing sexy back, like JT can sing that and it's hot and everybody's on board and there's not going to be a lot of backlash. Right. You put like a young, cute pop girl singer singing that song and that becomes a controversy. And it's very interesting because he as a male is allowed to claim that. He's allowed to want it. He's allowed to declare and flaunt it. And we appreciate it. We applaud it. We grow around it, but we as women, when we try to do that with something that does rightfully belong to us just as much as any man, we get shamed, slutified, we get negatively sexified, and then vilified. And that's just kind of been like the history of humanity for the last few thousand years. It's like any woman who dares to acknowledge her personal right to sexiness or whatever she wants to define it as is running a really high risk of being vilified.
Yeah, I totally agree. What do you think, Amanda?
Oh my God, Chelsea just got me all fired
I know,
up.
right?
I feel like we have to put a stop to this right now. This is our mission.
Totally. Well,
my gosh.
I think the other thing too is it's assumptive, because when you make sexy synonymous with slutty, you're assuming a behavior there. And there's so many women I know, girls. I can go back to being a teenager. I can think about my daughter and her friends, and just it starts back then, which is even more dangerous because it's shaping early on. And you label somebody sexy, therefore slutty, therefore promiscuous, right? So now there's an assumption of a behavior, and there's even more shame in that. And it's so many times not even true. Just because you're pretty, they assume you're sleeping around. Like that sounds like a crazy leap when you say it out loud like that, right? But in our minds, that is what's happening a lot of times, and it's so frustrating. I will say I feel very strongly because I have a 15-year-old daughter, and so I'm watching it through, watching her go through it, which watching someone else, even if it's like your friend or something, go through something, it always makes us want to fight about it more than even if it happens to us, right? Because we want to stick up for people. And then more so when it's your child. But I see when it even starts to happen with the clothes they wear, because girls have such a tighter dress code, especially in school, but just in general. In the workplace, even like business casual, women get so many more kind of rules and restrictions or judgments based on what we wear. And that automatically can translate into sexy, then slutty, then behavior, then shame, then assumptions just as quickly out of our clothing. And I don't see it happening to men at all, obviously. So it's, obviously the double standard, but even more than, because that's a whole other conversation, the double standard, but even more than that, I think it like shapes our behavior too, right? Amanda, I mean, you spent a lot of time in a workplace in like a business environment. Do you feel like that about even just what we wear?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that I was very conscious about that, about how I was perceived by my coworkers, particularly like, well, I don't know, both female and male coworkers, not just male coworkers. And I mean, I don't know that my choices necessarily would have been different in general, but I think, yeah, there are definitely times when I felt if I was dressing a little more sexy, I was very hyper aware of that. Yeah. And what kind of reaction would I get when I walk into the office about this? So yeah, so definitely.
Yeah.
And what's so crazy is, I was just thinking about my whole fair skin thing, right? And when we were talking about it earlier, I was thinking, it would take years and maybe even decades for me to undo this belief in my mind that fair is not beautiful. Or, you know what I mean? And that like that tan is the epitome of beauty.
Yeah.
Right? And so as a society, yes, we do. We consciously and subconsciously have these beliefs about how we perceive sexy, exactly like you guys are talking about. And clearly there's a double standard. Clearly there's an injustice. Clearly something needs to be done about it. Okay.
We're working on it.
But it's like, we're working on it, but how do we really transform that perception in people's minds on a larger scale? And is it just our culture, or how do other cultures perceive the same circumstances?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, because I think that to take it a step further, even especially in other cultures, but I will say, I want to talk about this for 1 second, because I will say I even feel it, that sexy equals unsafe. Ooh, if you're in certain environments or places and you feel like the people in the room are finding you attractive or desirable, depending on where you are, that makes me feel, that's a red blinking neon sign for danger for me. And it's so funny because I have never, thank goodness, had anything like that happen to me, that this unspoken fear we're talking about right now, that worst case scenario if I were caught in a bad situation. But I'm hyper aware of it to the point where like I have wondered if it's happened in a past life or something. I mean, I carry a lot of like anxiety and fear over it, and I don't know if it's just because I'm reacting to the subliminal messaging of our culture and the vibes I get when I have been in those situations. It could just be that, or it's more. I don't know. I don't know why, but I have a huge fear of this.
I think it's intellectual. I think it's healthy to have that fear. I think it is. I think it keeps us women alive to be in tune with that and to listen to that. I do think that we are lucky if we can learn to listen to that and to fear it in a healthy way at a young age. I think there are some women who perhaps don't tap into that, or maybe don't interact with that feeling the same way that perhaps you might or I might, but I think that's instinctual, right? To a certain extent, it has to be, because we are prey.
Well, right.
By being female. I mean, that sounds kind of dramatic, but males are predators and we are their prey. So it is, I mean, we should pay attention. I think that's healthy.
I think we should too, and it's definitely healthy compared to the alternative, I believe. If I turned it off, obviously, then I'm inviting all kinds of stuff, right? But I mean, just the fact that it exists, that it needs to exist based on like where our culture is with all of the burden of my safety is on me.
Right.
and not on like the people who might do things that would make me unsafe. And that's crazy. And that's a whole other conversation, I'm sure, for another day. But the way I feel it plays into this is like, okay, I'm just going to say this. I mean, have you guys ever been in a situation where you felt like you wanted to appear less sexy or attractive in order to not draw attention to yourselves? I mean, Chelsea, I feel like we've had enough conversations. I know you have. So yeah.
Yeah, I have too. Totally.
It's a helpless feeling.
I have definitely chosen one outfit over another because just in case. And what you said something really interesting. You said inviting. You said the word inviting.
Oh, man.
Isn't it so crazy that when we appear a certain way, it is perceived as we are inviting, right? Our behavior cannot be inviting. It can be, no, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Very clear.
Right.
But it doesn't really matter.
Because like I said, the burden of my safety is all on me. That's what I feel. That's how I feel about our culture.
Yes.
And I think about that for my daughter. I think about that for the dress code at school when she complains about it. And there is a huge part of me that wants to tell her, yeah, this is stupid. And I tell her, yeah, it's stupid. The dress code is stupid. I don't agree with it. I don't think the burden should have to be on you. I think that we should be teaching our sons better than that, if you're going to come home and tell me that you couldn't get a good grade in class because you were too distracted by, some girl's shirt, like whose problem is this really? It's not her shirt's problem. Okay. So I do tell her it's stupid, but the flip side of that is like, but the reality is I know just as well as the next person that we feel the burden of our safety on us, and that we do see a difference in people's behavior depending on how we present ourselves. And so do I want her to feel free with her body and like confident enough to wear whatever she wants, even if that is low cut shirts or high cut jean shorts? Yeah, I want us to live in a world where like people are fine with the human anatomy and not labeling someone as a slut because they wear short shorts. I want to live in that world, but we live in this world and it is a safety thing, and that breaks my heart and gets me just as fired up as Chelsea. I mean, it's so frustrating. I don't know about you guys, but I get frustrated about it all the time.
Well, it makes me feel not just vulnerable, although that is, that's how it feels, but it also feels helpless in a sense that goes even deeper than just general vulnerability. Helplessness in a sense where there is no good option for us. We can try to not look sexy, but then perhaps we are sacrificing a part of our personal identity that belongs to us and that we should be empowered by.
And our power.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Or we can dress what might be considered sexy and risk being hurt or injured or vilified or 100,000 other things. So I think that for me, it comes down to where our options have landed, at least right now in this moment in history, and how there are really no choices that are 100% safe and 100% healthy. And that's fixable. So I'm really hoping that we get it together and can fix that as humanity over time. I'm sure we will. But that's like with me and my daughter, my daughter's 14, and we talk about the dress code at school all the time. Because I'm just like you, Heather. I think it's wrong, and I talk to my daughter about that. And I will buy her whatever she likes to look in, whatever clothing she feels good in, I will buy that for her. But when it comes to getting dressed and going off to school, there are these unfortunate conversations we have to have where it's exactly like what you just said. Like, I don't agree with this either, but there are some alternatives that just aren't worth it. And so that's where it's at.
Right. So we're all getting riled up and frustrated, and I think that's good to put that voice into this conversation that we are we're frustrated, but let's be productive. So yes. I know our listeners are probably just as fired up and just as frustrated as we are right now. So let's shift it and let's talk about what we can do to change it, because I know it can get a little overwhelming when you're like, I'm just one person. What am I going to do to change an entire culture, an entire history up until this point of how we have viewed this and that and, labels and everything. So let's make it more personal, because I know that is a way more bite-sized way to look at this, because if we all change how we, our own behaviors and habits and way of thinking, if we all do that, even just one at a time, then we start a movement and we do change the world. So it really starts with us. So Amanda, I'm really curious with you because you were talking about this earlier about how you had to give yourself like self-talk around, tan isn't the only way to be sexy or whatever. So what kinds of things do you do? Because I think we've already established sexy is about how we feel and our psychological, emotional, and spiritual health way before it's really even about how we look. So what are some of the things you do though that make you feel sexier?
I think a lot of the stuff I do to make me feel sexier are the same things that I do to make me feel more confident. Mm-hmm. So I would say first is raising my life condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I do from chanting. You guys know from other episodes. Definitely, because again, it's an inside job. Sexy is an inside job. Exercise is huge, because when I am exercising, I feel strong and I feel like I'm physically in my body, right? So when I'm physically in my body, then I'm just closer with it, and I want to protect it and I want to strengthen it and I want it to flourish, in this human experience we're having. Sorry, I sound like woo or something. All right,
girl,
let me
you're in the right
woo.
place.
But, also I put on real clothes. When I put on not leggings and my pajamas and I put on real clothes, that also makes me feel very sexy when I can actually, do something with my hair or put a little bit of makeup on to enhance my own natural beauty. That also makes me feel very sexy. So those are just a few things I do. And I think the other thing too, the last thing is, I would say dance too. We've talked about this before as a group.
Yeah.
But like, there's something about it. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with working out. It's like just being in your body.
Yeah, totally. And I know Chelsea likes to dance too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We all like to dance. Who are you kidding?
I know.
And I would say for me, it's about the word sexy a lot of times and how I use it. So I tend to use the word sexy a lot for a lot of things. I don't know if I started doing that on purpose or not, but it's where I'm at now. So the word sexy now feels like it's mine, as opposed to a word that could be used at me or against me or whatever. And I do believe that feeling of belonging happened because I reclaimed that word for myself. So I tell my mom that she looks sexy. Like, I am someone who, I use the word sexy a lot with my mom. And I use the word sexy a lot with things that are not typically considered physical, like really sexy. When my husband handles something like just super cool, like totally like keeps it together and he knows what he's doing and he doesn't waver, like that's sexy. That's so sexy. That's safe and steadfast and hot, And so I think just by me wanting and then using the word sexy a lot in my own life to identify the things that do truly ring true as sexy to me as an individual, I have been able to kind of feel a little bit more empowered about my own sexiness, because when I'm getting ready or whatnot for anything and I look in the mirror and I say to myself, you know what, you got this, you're sexy, I feel sexy. And it has nothing to do with what I look like. It has everything to do with how I'm defining it and what I'm claiming from it in that moment. So yeah, I think for me, it has a lot to do with the word sexy. What about you, Heather?
That's awesome. I love that. I would say definitely the confidence, anything that gives me confidence, like Amanda was saying. But one thing that I've found that has helped me is to make sure I'm balancing my growing confidence in other areas, so that when I feel sexy, it doesn't become a single label and it doesn't cancel out any of the other things that I am. And so if I'm feeling sexy, it's because I also know that I'm smart. Yeah. And I also know that I'm strong. And I also know that I'm fun, because to me, playful and sexy are kind of similar for me. And so I need to be feeling like all of these things at once, really, for it all to come together. And that's when I feel the sexiest. And then I'm not worried about if somebody calls me sexy, that's a compliment. And I don't have to read into, wait, so if they think I am pretty, does that mean I can't also be smart? And then you get offended or something,
right.
So that doesn't happen for me. I will take it because I know I'm all these other things too. And so that's a huge one for me. But that's also coming from, because I've had friends who I've talked to who growing up, they were always told they were pretty, which doesn't sound like a bad problem, but they were only ever told they were pretty. And that's, I think, also where some of this comes in, is really important that you make sure you know about yourself that you're not just that one thing. And same goes for the other side of it, though. If you were growing up only told you were smart over and over again, that doesn't sound like a problem either, but you need to make sure you're balancing it with, yeah, but I'm also gorgeous and sexy and attractive. And so make sure you're balancing with all of these things. So that's a big one for me. And then another one is pleasure, because I will get so turned off. Like when I say turned on and turned off, I just mean that feeling of being alive, and that excitement of life. I will lose that because I'm focusing on work. Like after a long work day, when you're all up in the work all day, you're in a different mode of your brain. And so you're not in your body, and you're not remembering that you're sexy, cute, smart, whatever. And you aren't feeling pleasure, like physical pleasure. The one thing that makes me feel sexy more than anything else is physical pleasure. Like, this is going to get really adult for a second. Okay. So turn this off if you have little ones listening up to this point. But like, the thing that makes me want to have sex is having sex. That more than anything else, And so if I can get into feeling pleasure, it snowballs. Then I want to feel pleasure again and again and again and again. And when that gets interrupted because I got caught up in work or real life or other stuff for too long, then I get turned off and I shut down completely. And then I also don't feel sexy anymore. So the best way to reactivate it is to feel pleasure in some way. And I will give you guys, if you're listening and you're like, yeah, I don't remember the last time I felt pleasure, I will give you guys one of the best books that I read last year. And it's, again, turn this off if you have little ears listening. Okay, here we go. It's called Pussy. That's the name of the book. I can't remember Regina. I can't remember her last name, but I don't think there's going to be that.
Thomas Shower.
Okay. I'm like, there can't be that
Regina
many books with that title.
Mama Gina.
Okay, Regina Thomas-Shower, and she wrote an amazing book about reclaiming your sexiness and your pleasure again. And it really like woke me up in these ways to recognize that these are the things I need to do regularly to feel this good. So I highly recommend it. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. If you need to put a book cover over it so that people don't know what you're reading, do it, but it is worth it. It's such a good book. So those are the things that I would say that help me most. And then I have one more fun question, guys, to make you think. And that is, who or what do we find sexy in others? Namely the opposite sex, but it could be same sex. It could be whoever you're attracted to, either sexually or just like, man, they got it going on. So who, you can name celebrities, I don't care, but I want to know, like, let's talk about what gets us going, who has swagger, and maybe why or what about them is doing that for us. And I'm going to pick Amanda first because she looks deep in thought, and I know she's going down her list of celebrity names because she has a list. And so I'm going to pick on her first. I want to know.
Oh my God, that's so funny because I totally was. I was like, who really like does it?
Were you trying to reshuffle who is your number one right now? Because
I was thinking like, who is like really hot? Like who invokes a reaction out of me physically when I see them? And I think everybody knows not everybody knows, you guys know, my number one celebrity crush for like half my life is Orlando Bloom. He's very sexy, but he's not, I love him for many, many reasons. Okay. But like when I think of like who's really sexy, yes, Orlando, if you're listening for whatever reason, you're
still
sexy.
number one, Orlando. Don't worry.
You're still number one. Okay, call me. All right, I'm married, but we can be friends or something. I don't know.
You should say email me. That sounds very like professional and like you're married and it's fine, but just email me.
Oh yeah, email me. Email me and copy my husband so he knows what's up. Okay.
Like a to-do
my poor
list.
husband, he's like, what the hell? But for me, I think like Robert Downey Jr. is someone who is just like super sexy, and also John Stamos. I know these are like older guys, but like there's something about them that's just, they got swagger, man.
Yeah, they do.
They do. But yeah, I think with the opposite sex, I think smiling is incredibly sexy. Humor is super sexy.
Yeah.
Very, very sexy. And I will say this, because my love language is acts of service. Mm-hmm. So, this kind of goes back to what Chelsea was saying about her husband, like the way her husband handles certain things. But like when my husband goes out of his way for me, like that's just like, damn.
Yeah.
Do that again. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Super hot.
So I love that. Yes. So I think that's for me.
And now Amanda's top 3 celebrity crushes. So you're welcome.
I don't really have celebrity crushes, and that's not like a new thing. It's just kind of my whole life. I don't really. I have crushes on characters that celebrities play in movies and in TV and stuff. But I don't actually.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever had like a crush on like the person who is the actor who plays a character. Just because I don't know them, I think they're not real people to me, so I don't. But their characters somehow they make the cut. I have no idea. Fictional.
They're
characters.
Totally real. Yeah.
I'm a writer. I guess I slipped into the right career choice for me. I guess.
Right.
But as far as like the character traits in someone else that I find kind of irresistible in that sexy way, the biggest thing is probably going to be empathy. I find empathy very, very sexy. I find it, because empathy takes work. Empathy requires like a moment of pause to feel something that you are choosing to feel. It's not something you have to feel. It's something you are choosing to experience for the benefit of somebody else. And there are very few things that are more beautiful than that to me. So empathy is huge. And then another big one is patience. Because I am not a patient person. I am not patient. I just want to go, and I want everything right away, all at once. And so I find patience incredibly attractive because I find it fascinating. Because I don't understand how people do it. Some people are very patient. My husband is a very patient person. And I don't know how he does it, guys. I take notes. I watch his patterns. I can't replicate it.
I take notes.
So those are going to be the character traits that I probably would put at the top of my sexiness list. And as far as the personification of that, character-wise, as far as having crushes on characters, I'm a big fan of Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to second that.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd put him
okay, but
I know.
I'm going to okay. I'm going to go with him too, but I'm going to say for a different reason, and you just tell me if you agree with this. Okay. I think, so I have a thing for the bad boy with the soft heart, right? Like, and that's him. That's that character. But I think more importantly than that, it's the tough guy exterior. And then I'm the only one who lets see the real him. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's a power thing. Is it right? If we're going to be real honest, that's what it comes down to. For me,
it's a power that I'm powerful because you let me in, but nobody else. It is you're right. It's a power trip. Oh shit. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Next time on the Raw Honeys, we'll be discussing power overload.
Right.
And what happened? Yeah, no.
Oh man, because that makes. Okay, this is weird, but like thinking about how sexy I find a bad guy or a tough guy who's going to only let me in makes me feel sexy. The kind of power it makes me feel makes me feel sexy in return. That's crazy.
It's a special privilege.
Oh, yes, I am.
You feel special.
Oh.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Okay, then that's what it is. It's when they can make me feel special that's a turn on, because then I feel sexy too. And that reciprocal sexiness is just, that's it.
We're
Boom, get a room.
Problem. We have all the solutions right here.
Oh, we do. We can heal the whole dang world if we just, like, everybody needs to make everybody else feel special.
I know. It's so true.
And that alleviates the shame and the assumptions and the safety issues and all of it. It just make everybody else feel special. And that's so sexy. And probably a lot more people will want to have sex with you, but they'll be super respectful about it. So it's not an issue.
That's right. Make love, not war, people. That's what we're doing.
I love it. I love it. Chelsea, that's going to be one of your catchphrases, I feel like.
Can we hashtag it?
Oh, yes.
Don't do the hashtag. Well, you could do the hashtag because it looks like sex. Whenever you do a hashtag symbol with your fingers, it looks like two people having sex.
Stop giving away my nerdy.
But it's appropriate. Yeah. Today it's appropriate. So it's cool.
Today it works. Yes, but it is.
Yeah, man. I really think for me it's like they let me in, they share themselves, their feelings and thoughts and stuff with just me, and that makes me feel special, and it's such a turn on. So I'm gonna go with the Shelby character also.
Yeah.
Oof, man.
The Shelby brothers, just in general, just all of them. Let's just say.
I know.
Right? Because okay.
Or even what's her name? The sister.
Ava.
The older one. Or the aunt, then I guess.
Aunt Polly? Well, yeah, that's who I want to be
Polly.
when I grow up.
I mean, she's sexy too. I know. She's badass.
Can we talk about why she's sexy? Because she can throw it down.
Yes.
She can throw it down. Like, without batting an eye. That's hot. It's super hot.
Well, and the way I think there's like a lot of psychology to dial into that for me, because I think part of it too is that she approaches things sort of like a man. Like, she doesn't apologize for anything, especially like when she does have sex or pick a partner or something. She's very unapologetic about it, and she's very like matter of fact. Yeah, she owns it. Like, listen, we're gonna have sex and then you're gonna leave, and that's what it is.
This is how it goes. She's not afraid of men, and I think that, especially for a period like Peaky Blinders, I think that is an incredibly refreshing and inspiring character trait for a leading female character to have, is having no fear of men, not just the men in her family, who she does talk to differently. She speaks to each one of them differently because she learns each of those languages. And we should have another episode someday on how we as women have to learn so many different kinds of languages just to play in a man's world. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Yeah. But she does.
We should. Write that down, Amanda.
I'm going to put it in the Google.
All right. I'm writing it down.
I know, right? Chelsea loves saying that. We've said that like 4 times this week. We come up with an idea and Chelsea's like, I'm going to put that in a Google Doc. And I'm like, I believed you until you said that.
I know. I haven't even opened my Google Docs. I don't know.
I know. I'm like, do you even know what a Google Doc really is?
Right? Exactly.
But Amanda's writing it down, so it's going to happen, so we don't have to worry. So it's fine. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you going through this really like intense and kind of wide range conversation that we had. We talked about a lot of things. Before we go, we really just want to leave you with one thing from each of us, like a final thought or like our main thought, a takeaway, if you will. And so I'm going to start with Amanda. What do you want to leave with the honeys today?
This is what I would like to leave the honeys with today. Everyone is sexy. Whoever you are listening, you are sexy. But I think something we established on this call without saying it directly is that sexy is something that we have to cultivate. So if you're not already cultivating your sexy, go ahead and get started, because it will definitely pay off for you and for the rest of the world as well. And I also want to say that I think something we can do to change society's view on sexy is let's as women especially raise up other women, because everybody is sexy. We should not be threatened by anyone else's sexy.
Yeah.
All right. That's her sexy. Let's celebrate her sexy. And then in return, she can celebrate your sexy, because sexy is probably like a fingerprint or something. You know, they're all different.
Yes,
they come in all shapes and sizes and colors and patterns and whatever it is. So let's really, you know, come together on this whole sexy thing and celebrate it with each other. And then when we do that, we'll be able to change everyone else's perception. So let's start doing that in our own communities. I want to be like, what do you think? And then everyone says, yeah.
I'm with you, girl.
Yes.
I'm with you. That's
Sexy.
If you're with me out there, say yes.
Sexy is a fingerprint, girl. Oh my God, that's a tweetable.
Yeah,
Write that shit down right now. That was amazing.
Hashtag.
If we had a mic, we would have dropped it right then.
Definitely. That's beautiful. Oh my goodness. I don't even have really anything to follow that up with, because that is beautiful, and that is exactly a great place to start for anybody. So maybe I would just say, in an effort to contribute to that sharing of sexiness with one another as women, I would say don't be afraid to use the word sexy. Don't be afraid to claim it as your own and use it to define what sexy is to you, what sexiness means, what it feels like, what it might look like. And don't be afraid to use it when you're speaking to other women in your life, even if they're your mama. Just use it, throw it around, because it's ours, and you are special, you are sexy, you are worth it, you are all of these things, and you are definitely allowed to reclaim that word and decide how it's shaped. Yeah. What about you,
That's
Heather?
so perfect. I was going to say, you are allowed. You have permission to feel sexy. It's a good thing. And so I love that you said that. You are allowed. And then I would say to do it for you and not your boyfriend or your husband or your girlfriend or your wife or anybody else. Do it for you and figure out, like Chelsea said, what makes you feel sexy, and do that. And don't worry about what you think anyone else, you know, is gonna find sexy about you. Just do it for you, because when you feel it, that's when it's real, and it's powerful, it's exciting, and it makes you feel alive, and it really is okay. So we give you full on permission, guys. Go out there, be sexy, bring sexy back.
Yeah.
You have our full permission, and we'll see you ladies next time. Mwah. Bye, honeys.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Raw Honeys podcast. If so, please share it with a friend or post a review. Heather, Chelsea, and I would love to connect with you. Check us out on Instagram at the Raw Honeys, or join our community of honeys on Facebook. Thanks for listening. We wish you nothing but big love.